Hey, so how's it going, everyone? This is a follow-up video to our series on the 2022 Honda Civic Si. And our video today, we're going to talk about the things that we dislike about this vehicle. Now listen, I love the vehicle, all right? So before you get the wrong idea that we're going to be bashing the 2022 Honda Civic Si, that is not at all the case. It's an awesome vehicle, but like anything, there's always room for improvement. And there's a few things that are important enough to talk about that I think if Honda made these changes, it would make it that much better, all right? So in no particular order, one of the first things that I noticed about driving this Honda Civic Si is it doesn't have a tremendous amount of engine braking. And what I mean by that is when you're going down a hill, down a steep hill, and you downshift from 6th to 5th or 5th to 4th or 4th to 3rd, whatever you might be doing, the car doesn't slow down very aggressively. Almost every other manual transmission vehicle that I've ever had, when you do that downshift, the car slows down pretty directly. This doesn't. And not that it's necessarily bad or good. It's not my preference. If I'm downshifting, there's a reason I'm downshifting. And it's either to accelerate and pass, another vehicle or what have you, or to accelerate out of a corner, or it's to slow down to help you get stopped so that you can make a sharp corner or something along those lines. So that's one of the big things for me that stood out almost immediately. And I am looking off my phone here on my list to make sure I don't miss anything. Here's another thing that I've heard a lot of other YouTubers talk about that have reviewed this car, and it's a big miss for Honda, honestly. If you bought a US-made Honda Civic Si, a 2022 model, you don't get fog lights, you don't get heated seats, you don't get a heated steering wheel. If you buy the same vehicle in Canada, you do get all of those things, and you get it at a cheaper price. I bought it anyway. It wasn't a deal breaker for me, but to be able to produce it in Canada for less price than they can produce it or sell it here in the United States, that stings a little bit, if I'm being honest with you. So that's another one. The rear brake light impedes your view. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So when you're looking out the rear view mirror, the rear brake light is in that viewing area. I don't know if I'm showing this well or not, but kind of tough to see here, but in that general vicinity right there, where that little bump is, where the rear brake light is, especially if you're a tall guy like I am, it impedes the view directly out in the middle of the car. And again, a deal breaker? Nah, it's not a deal breaker, but I find that incredibly annoying, and I think that that's something that they could have very easily fixed. Here's another thing that bugs me. The electric park brake. Now, to me, I refer this as an emergency brake. If something bad happens, I like to have an emergency brake, and honestly, in this sporty of a car, I would love for, instead of this being known as a parking brake, I would love this to have a mechanical, hand-actuated, proper handbrake that you could use as a park brake, that you could use as an emergency brake, that you could, use as either one. I honestly think that that would be better, and if you're old school, if you're old enough to know this, there's nothing better than a front-wheel drive car with a proper handbrake in a snow-covered parking lot. You can't do that with this. So it works. It puts the vehicle into a situation where it's parked and it shouldn't move, but I don't know. There's something just, electric parking brakes have no soul. All right, I said it. So there's that as well too. Not a huge deal, but it's one of those things. The infotainment system on this is a little slow to recognize the phone. So when you start this up, it takes, my son disagrees with me on this, it takes about 45 seconds for this to recognize my phone. and for, you know, Apple Music to start playing on its own or what have you. I'm not going to put you guys through this whole process, but if you watch, like, it still hasn't connected to Apple CarPlay. Eventually it will, and then it takes a moment for all that stuff to work as well too. So there it went. It just went right now, and it is gonna go ahead and play it. So, you know, sometimes it's faster than others, but it's my video and that bugs me, and you know, I'd like to see it faster, and they could probably do that with a just an update, a firmware update or something along those lines. All right. So the only other thing that is left is the worst of all. It's the worst thing of all. And it was a huge miss for Honda as far as I'm concerned. And it's the fact that there is no spare tire in this thing, and there is no jack. And it's not because they don't have the room or the space or they're reducing the weight. I don't believe any of that stuff. I believe that it has to do with being a cost savings for the manufacturer. You know, that you don't add all that stuff, you can produce it for less money. And at the end of the day, I think that that is a terrible, terrible example. And I'm going to tell you why. We've had one issue. So as I mentioned, we've had one issue with this car. A couple, probably 3 weeks after we bought it. It had less than 1,000 miles on it, maybe a month after we bought it. A light on the dash came on saying that we had low tire pressure. And about that same time, my son said, I feel like the car's pulling to the right. Well, lo and behold, the right front passenger tire was down on air. So I put some air back into it. You know, maybe it's just a freak thing, I don't know. Put air into it. A day later, the tire's completely flat. What's going on here? So I take the tire off, jack the car up, take the tire off. I look everywhere, there's no hole in the tire. I go so far as to now submerge the tire to figure out where the air is coming out of this thing. And the air is coming out of the bead, in between the bead and the tire, on the inside of it. Well, that's strange. So I contact the dealer. Where I bought it is further away from me. They referred me to a closer dealer. Wasn't real happy with my experience there. They accused us of running it into a pothole, you know, knocking the air out of the tire. I said, that didn't happen, first of all. And secondly, do you see anywhere on here where the wheel is marked? Well, no, there's none of that. But that's probably what it was. I said, well, that's absolutely not what it was. It definitely wasn't that. Something's up. So they take the tire off, they put the tire back on, and they remove one of on the tires, there's like a little tiny sticker. And they're like, well, maybe it was that. They put the thing back on, no problem. That tire's fine. So we drive it for another couple of weeks. Guess what? The left tire does the same thing. So now I'm agitated. It's literally doing the same thing. I pull the tire off, I submerge it, it's leaking from the bead around the outside on this. So we work it out with our dealer, because I didn't want to take it back to the other dealership that I'm not going to mention that they referred me to. We worked something out. The service manager felt like maybe it's that little sticker that's on the tires that is allowing the air to leak out. Take it to a dealership that I trust. They pull it off. Sure as can be, that's exactly what it is. So as these are going down the assembly line, the manufacturer, I don't know if it's Honda or whoever's mounting the tires on the wheels, aren't pulling the sticker off of the tire right here, and it is allowing that wheel to leak air. It's an oversight, not a huge deal, right? It's really not that big of a deal, and I wasn't that upset about it. However, this car doesn't have a jack, number one, and it doesn't have a spare tire, number two. So how am I supposed to drive it down the road to take it to the dealer to have it repaired if the tire is flat and it's not like there's a puncture? So there's a puncture kit. Oh, you can put, you know, a sealant in it or whatever. Not when it's leaking around the bead, you can't. So if there was a spare tire, I could have used my own jack, put a spare tire on, not a problem. There's not one. There's also not a jack, so not everybody has their own situation where they can jack the car up and fix it. So for me, that is probably the only thing that I'm annoyed about this whole car. I think it's an oversight. I know that you know, they say, well, it doesn't have a spare tire because it's a sports car. No, it's not. It's not a sports car. It's a sporty car, but it's not a sports car. So what I think Honda ought to do, in addition to putting fog lights and the heated steering wheel and the heated seats that the US version is missing, I think they ought to put a spare tire and they ought to put a jack in there, and it would just be such a simple fix and an inexpensive fix. And if you need to charge the customer an extra $200, $250, if there was an option on there where you could opt to pay more for a spare tire and a jack, I would do it every day of the week. So that's my suggestions. We still love this car, by the way. Those are just a few things that we think that would make this next level. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And we also did a video on like an overview of the car. We also did a video on the 5 things that we like most, or I think it was 6 things that we like most about it. And I have some other Honda Civic Si content coming up as well too. Have a great day.